That wasn't in your bag. What you need to stick to is what you do best. What you talking about, Willis? What I'm telling you is don't go in court and assess this trial lawyer and you sitting up there and you looking at them with all the technology. They got the PowerPoint presentation, the high-tech videos. They reconstructing the crime scene. They got the IT people to assist them in oohing and wowing the jury because it's high-tech. And you tell yourself, all right, my trial against the prosecutor, I'm going to be high-tech too. Bro, you know you don't got no IT department at your office. All you got is a 1-800 number from the Geek Squad.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.
Where you at, beautiful people? How you doing? How you feeling? How life treating you? Welcome to another episode of Call Your First Witness. It's your boy K Will checking in. Excited to be here. You already know, man. Listen. I'm going to change it up for you. When I drop my podcast, I told some of the up-and-coming lawyers, man, I'm going to put y'all on game, man. And so this is my time where I'm going to incorporate a segment of my podcast to just pour into you. You know who you are. I'm getting to know my audience, and I'm realizing there's people from all walks of life, and I really, really appreciate that. So for those of you who this may not apply to, just bear with me. But I want to pour into some of these lawyers, man. I've been getting some feedback from them, and I told them I'll share a few tricks of the trade, man. So here we go, man. Listen, I want to focus on a very, very simple topic. And I call this topic, Know Thy Opponent, right? Just understanding the importance of knowing your opposition, right? And I'm talking about trials. I'm talking about the art of litigation, the art of war, right? There's a book written by Sun Tzu. He said, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles, right? And so when we look at the aspect of trial, right, you essentially going to war. I mean that figuratively, but it's a battle, right? And so you have to know your opponent. Now, this is intuitive. We understand this in sports. We understand this in business. And even in the realm of the courtroom, you have an adversary, right? And so what I think is important, whenever I'm preparing for a trial, it's important for me to study my opponent, right? And if I'm doing this in the middle of trial, it's too late. I prepare for my opponent before they my opponent. Some of y'all gonna catch that later. I prepare for my opponent before they ever become my opponent. That means I'm sitting down, and when I say prepare and study my opponent, I'm saying I go in the courtroom and I see that lawyer in action. I may not be on that case. In fact, I'm not on the case. I just walk in the courtroom and have a seat. And I'm making mental notes because I want to see that lawyer under the lights, right? I had a coach, a high school coach by the name of Coach Z. Shout out to Coach Z. And Coach Z would always say, like, we'll be at practice making plays and doing all kind of stuff. I played DB in high school, so I'll make an interception at practice. And he'll be like, Willis, I see you over there, but listen, you got to show me something under the lights. And where he's talking about, you know, high school, we talking about Friday Night Lights. So, yeah, I see you at practice doing your thing, but show me what you got under the lights. When I'm talking about under the lights, I'm talking about when you're in front of a jury. See, trial lawyers get their respect when they trying jury trials. We're not here to look at you when you in motions practice, you articulating to the judge your case. That's all good for another day. But when we talking about jury trials, it's a whole nother ball game because it's a very intense environment. You in front of a whole bunch of strangers, and guess what? All eyes on you. What you got? And so you have to, when you studying your opponent, and I'm talking about evaluating them way before you and your adversary ever have a trial, you sitting down watching them and you trying to figure out what makes them effective. What's their special sauce, right? Are they a good orator, a good communicator? Do they really vibe with the jury? Or maybe they have a sense of humor, right? That's something that they didn't learn in law school, man. They just was born with that special ability just to make people laugh, just to make them comfortable. What is it about? You got to understand, everyone's special in their own unique way. It's just something you have to walk in there understanding going in. Listen, don't underestimate the young attorneys. A lot of folks that say, oh man, this their first trial, this their second trial. No. Everyone's special in their own unique way. I had a trial not too long ago against a young attorney. This was like his second jury trial, right? And what I noticed about him, he had a dry sense of humor that really put the jury at ease, right? And so he was doing this thing and had them laughing, and that's what you want. You want the jury to like you. And so although it was his second trial, he had a way of connecting to the jury by using his humor. And so don't walk in there underestimating a young attorney thinking they don't have nothing to bring to the table. And so you really want to assess this lawyer, right? Who trained him or her, right? What's their style? What's their trial persona? Right? And the purpose of this is not to be them, but to study them, right? That's when we start making mistakes. You got to understand, you in there to study the opponent, not be your opponent, right? We try to outmatch them based on what they do best, right? You sitting up there and seeing this lawyer, oh man, they very dramatic. They come alive in the courtroom. They can bring the jury on the scene of the crime. They're very dramatic in their approach. And so you try to match that. If you don't have that in your bag, that might not be a good move for you, right? You got to be objective with yourself. You also have to understand you bring something to the table. We all bring something to the table, but don't try to outdo or outshine your opponent based on what they good at if you don't got that in your bag. It remind me of the Phoenix Suns back in the day, right? This was the Phoenix Suns when they had Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, Mike D'Antoni was the coach. You remember that team, Rajah Bell, Sean Marion. Remember? High-flying offense, high octane. They took fast break to a whole nother level. Folks couldn't stop them, right? It wasn't revolutionary because you had the fast break that started like in the 70s, but they were running and gunning on a whole nother level. All up and down the courtroom, fast break, every play, all game long, 4 quarters. That was their thing. They were called the run and gun offense. Remember that team? And they had a nice little run from about 05 to 09. They were doing their thing. But let me tell you something. Some of the teams, to try to stifle that high fly run and gun offense, they try to match them by doing the same thing. Bad move, dog. Bad move, right? And so they say, look. They running up and down the court, fast breaks, passing the ball, pushing it. We going to do the same thing. Bad move. That's not your game. That's not what got you there, right? Don't try to match them at their game, right? And that's what I mean in a court of law. If that's not in your bag, don't try to match them. So you running and gunning, you trying to run and gun with the Phoenix Suns, and you ain't trained for that in the offseason? You don't have that stamina to be running and gunning for 4 quarters. So when a 4 quarter hit, you gassed. You done. You bent over, hands on your knees, hands on your knees, hands on your knees, hands on your knees. Let me stop. You done. Because you didn't train for that. That wasn't in your bag. What you need to stick to is what you do best. Yeah, they running and gunning and they were doing their thing, but ask them if they won a championship. Yeah, they had some problems. They had to run into a guy by the name of Kobe Bryant. You probably heard of him. Or they had to run into the San Antonio Spurs. Yep. Running and gunning, all that nice, innovative, very exciting, very energetic. They had to run into the big fundamentalists. Stick to the basics. What you talking about, Willis? What I'm telling you is, don't go in court and assess this trial lawyer and say, man, what they doing good? What makes them effective? And you sitting up there and you looking at them with all the technology. They got the PowerPoint presentation, the high-tech videos. They reconstructing the crime scene. They got the IT people to assist them. They got all that going on and oohing and wowing the jury because it's high-tech. And you tell yourself, all right, my trial against the prosecutor, I'm going to be high-tech too. Bro, you know you don't got no IT department at your office. All you got is a 1-800 number from the Geek Squad. And that ain't part of your package. You got to pay a premium to get somebody from the Geek Squad to come to court for you. That ain't happening. And your assistant, a dinosaur just like you. It's not happening. Stop trying to match their game. Okay, that's what they do best. They got the technology. They got the resources. Don't try to match them. Don't try to outshine them at what they're effective at. Be old school. Ain't nothing wrong with an easel and a poster. Be the big fundamentalist. Be old school and neutralize their game. That's the whole point. If you sit down, that's why it's important to assess your opponent prior to your trial against them, right? Because now you done sat down and you say, okay, bet. They big on technology. They big on PowerPoint. And you know what? I'm not effective in that regard. I'm not even going to act like I'm not coming up in here with computers and videos and high-tech PowerPoint. That's not my game. Sometimes less is more. So I'm going to come up in here straight basic, an easel and a couple of posters. And see, you got to neutralize your opponent. You got to say, ladies and gentlemen, listen. I know the state got a whole bunch of high-tech fancy stuff. I know technology is good until it's not, right? I'm sorry I don't have all these fancy gadgets and we don't have nobody from the IT department, but guess what? They ain't teach me all that in law school. And you know what? I'm going to just stick to the basics. At the end of the day, they could have all these fancy videos to try to reconstruct the crime scene. But you know what? The real footage that really matters, that grainy footage that they trying to say that that's my client, you can't make out who that is. All that high-tech fancy stuff, at the end of the day, they did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that's my client. Yeah, we don't know who that is committing that robbery. I'm sorry. I done blown up this big picture for you. I'm sorry it's basic, but sometimes we just got to keep it simple. I'm sorry. I'm old school. And you keep it at that. You neutralize it. You didn't try to match their game with their game, right? That's the whole purpose of assessing your opponent. You got to check them out, what they up to, what this prosecutor up to, what makes them effective, what's in their playbook. Some prosecutors, you got to watch them. They like to take it personal. Especially in closing arguments, they like to use your name, right? They start making it personal. Mr. Willis said this, and this was unfounded, and this was inappropriate, and this was improper. Mr. Willis will have you to believe this, and Mr. Willis is trying to persuade you by saying this, and he's being disingenuous and this and that, and all that's personal, right? Like, stick to the facts, stick to the evidence. And if you're not careful, you get caught up in that whole mudslinging approach. They sitting up there, Mr. Willis this, Mr. Willis that, and you sitting up there like, baby, man, put some respect on my name. What you talking about, Mr. Willis this and Mr. Willis that, right? Because some lawyers don't do that. Some prosecutors don't do that. They say defense counsel this, defense counsel that. They don't make it personal, but some lawyers, that's a tactic. They try to make it seem like the lawyer is kind of mischaracterizing and misrepresenting certain facts and trying to pull something over your head, right? And then they try to give you too much credit. They say, "Oh, he's a great lawyer. He's don't fall for his tactics. He's talented. He's this." They try to give you too much. I've been seeing that lately. They try to give you too much credit to try to make it seem like, "Oh, don't fall for the tricks." They making it personal. And human nature is going to make you fall right into that trap because you feel like you being personally attacked. And so you're going to get up there and you're going to hit the prosecutor with a whole bunch of personal attacks. And you thinking it's cool. It's natural. It's like, keep my name out your mouth. You want to talk about me? Let me tell you about yourself. But you got to know the temperature in the room. A lot of times the jury don't be wanting to hear all that. I've heard about a lot of cases. Thank goodness I wasn't part of the case, but I've heard about a lot of cases where the lawyers, they were slinging mud at one another and the jury came out. They were like, man, we ain't care for any of the lawyers. They just needed to stick to the case. All that mud slinging back and forth, that turned us off. So you don't want to get caught up into that whole little game of mud slinging. Nah, neutralize it. You get up there and you say, ladies and gentlemen, I understand my opponent had a lot to say about me, but this is not about me. This is about the facts of the case or the lack thereof. This is about the evidence that the state tried to prove to you, but they came up short. And they are attempting the oldest trick in the book, and they try to sling some mud on me. I don't have nothing to do with this case. I'm the lawyer. Let's stick to the evidence or the lack thereof. And you kill it. And essentially what you're doing is you taking a high road too. So you notice going into trial, that's their tactic. They gonna sling some mud. Be ready for that and neutralize it. Kill it. So that's what it's about, y'all. Just understanding your opponent, studying them. I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but it's important to really know your opponent. Understand everyone's special in their own unique way. Don't underestimate who you're going against. Remember, if you trying to prepare for this opponent in the middle of trial or leading right up to the trial, it's too late. You got to be studying that opponent really before they ever become your opponent. Right? Take some time out and just watch. Because at the end of the day, one day you're going to see them. If you're doing defense work, one day you're going to see them. Heck, you may want to be a prosecutor. If you're doing prosecutorial work, one day you're going to go against this defense lawyer. So don't wait for the moment. If you're waiting for the moment, guess what? It's too late. So look, y'all, that's my time, man. I hope I was able to help you with some little tidbits, man. Hope it'll help you along the way, man. And listen, keep supporting me. Keep telling people about me, man. I really appreciate the support. Like I said, I wanted to change it up a little bit. You know, I always have young up-and-coming lawyers in mind, man, and I'm going to bring much, much more for you. So just check back with me. Stay tuned. I'm going to keep it coming, man. It's high-level representation over here. This high-level stuff, man. Stay with me, baby. All right, check with you later. One.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.